Hello and welcome back to my astronomy nights. I'm Derek, and in this video we're going to take a look at what's available in the night sky throughout the month of June. Now, really dark skies are at a premium in midsummer, so it's good to populate your list with some of the brighter objects like planetary, nebula, globular clusters, stars and star clusters. But that's not to say there aren't some really nice galaxies to observe as well. And if you're looking for a challenge this month, do stick around to the end of the video and I'll set a deep sky challenge of some really nice interesting targets to observe. But to kick things off, we start with the solar system, beginning with the moon. Its full moon phase is near the end of the month on the 29th into the 30th, and that is the strawberry full moon, with new moon falling on the 15th of the month. It does team up with some of the planets in the evening sky after that new moon phase, and there's some really nice naked eye or photographic opportunities around the 17th of the month when that new crescent is just nearby to Venus and Jupiter, and you can see that Earth shine off the dark side of the moon as the sun has set. Going out to the planets, none of them are really well placed this month. You have Jupiter, Venus and Mercury all in the evening sky, and then you have Saturn and Mars just slowly working their way back into the morning sky, but still really low down in that early morning light. Mercury is a little larger this month, getting to its 50% phase, but again, it's quite close to the sun. But if you're going to try and observe it, do try to get that really new moon crescent into your field of view, and you could try to spot Mercury nearby. If you're trying to photograph it as well, it can be a very tricky planet to photograph because the atmosphere really distorts the light that you get from the planet, and it can distort the different color bands, and your image might look a little blurry. You may think it's your camera or your telescope, but it's just that when it's that close to the horizon, it makes for a really tricky object to photograph. One that you might be better photographing this month would be Venus, because it's a little higher and you can pick it up a little earlier in the evening as well. So Venus is a little larger this month. It has a size of about 14 arc seconds as it works its way around the sun, and it goes from a phase of 78% down to around 71% by the end of the month. But again, it's getting closer to the horizon, and June isn't a great time to observe planets, especially when they're close to the horizon, because the ecliptic is very shallow, so they don't get that kind of height away from it before the sun has set. The other planet over in the east then is Jupiter, which is really lost now. You're just observing it in the evening sky, and it's kind of become a naked eye object to observe, and its diameter is down to 30 arc seconds now, away from the 50 or so that you usually get during opposition. The other planets of Mars, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune are all trying to work their way back into the morning sky. The best placed of these is Saturn, but again, if you wait another month or two until it works its way up, it's in Pisces, so it just has to get into that autumn sky, and it'll be really worth observing as the rings start to open up again. But moving away from the planets, we're going to look into the deep sky now, and I'm going to start with a wonderful globular cluster in the constellation of Serpens, and that's Messier 5, and it's the brightest globular cluster in the North Celestial Hemisphere, just past the celestial equator. It shines at magnitude 5.6, so it's slightly brighter than Messier 13 and Hercules, and it's a really nice cluster to observe. It has a 5 on the Shapley-Sawyer concentration chart, so that core isn't hugely dense, but it is full of stars, but it has a really nice soft spread to it, and you get a lot of stars just kind of sitting around that halo of the globular cluster. It sits about 7.5 degrees away from the alpha star of Serpens, and it's nearby to a magnitude 5 Serpentis, which is a lovely double star that you can also observe when you're observing in this area. When you're observing Messier 5, a really interesting observation to do if you're in a latitude like mine is to try to compare it to the globular clusters in Scorpius of Messier 4 and Messier 80. Even though those clusters are quite low to the horizon from my latitude, with Messier 4 just getting to about 8 or 9 degrees above the horizon, it kind of shows you the difference that the atmosphere affects these targets more than your optics. Messier 4 is a really bright globular cluster, and it's larger than Messier 5, but it just gets washed out in that evening sky. You can pick up the stars, but it looks much fainter, especially if there's a moon around. If you don't have that really crisp dark sky, it makes a tricky observation, but it's a good way to get the Messier list complete by focusing on Messier 4 and Messier 80 in the month of June. Messier 80 is an easier target, even though it's a smaller cluster, because it has a little bit more altitude and it's a much more concentrated globular cluster in the core. that one shines at a magnitude of 7.3 and it's only got 10 arc minutes of diameter. So next up on the list, I'm going to move back into the northern part of the sky and look around the constellation of Lyrae at its two Messier objects of M57 and M56. M57 is that famous Ring Nebula in the constellation of Lyrae, and it's quite easy to track down as well, just being between the beta and gamma stars on the southern side of the constellation of Lyrae. You just need to focus on those two stars and you'll just see that little smoke ring effect between the two of them. Even in a wide field of view, you can pick it out as that non-stellar object in the field of view. Putting a bit of magnification on it as well, it holds up really well because it has that defined edge around it of the smoke ring effect. Even though it's only a degree by degree and a half, it is such a famous object because it shows up really well. And if you get it around new moon on a dark night, even past June, you can go right into say August, September and try to get this one on a new moon night, and it shows up really well and really crisp in the eyepiece. Now Lyrae has another Messier object in Messier 56, and this is a globular cluster, but it's kind of a loose globular cluster over towards maybe halfway between Albireo and Sulfat in Lyrae. You just need to find that halfway point to get the globular cluster. This one shines at magnitude 8.2 and it's quite small. It's only a 5.8 diameter on it, so it's much smaller than say the Hercules globular cluster or Messier 5, but it is quite bright even though it is a loose cluster. It has a 10 on the Shapley-Sawyer concentration chart, so that means that that core is quite loose and not as concentrated as say Messier 80 in Scorpius. It's a really nice globular cluster to track down, and again here if you're doing the Messier list, it's one of the easier clusters to find as well in the northern hemisphere. So just moving away from globular clusters for this part of the video, there are some really nice galaxies to track down, but you're trying to find galaxies that are towards the north or at least have some really good altitude just to get the most out of them. One of those galaxies that you can go for is Messier 101. This is up off the handle of Ursa Major, and if you were observing M51 last month, it's kind of on the opposite side of the handle to M51. There's a nice line of stars there. The line of stars is just 81, 83, 84 and 86, and if you follow that line of stars down you can come onto the galaxy. It's a really large galaxy, but it's extremely faint. It has a low surface brightness, so you do have to take your time to kind of tease out that overall size of the galaxy. It has a size of about 24 arc minutes diameter, but when I'm observing this, if you say about half that, you can pick it up really well, that center portion, but those light arms that move away from the galaxy are extremely tricky to pick up in your telescope, and it has a few designations of NGC objects for those arms because they look kind of separated away from the galaxy. But it is a really nice one to photograph. If you have time to photograph it, you can pick it up and pull out some of the detail in those lovely arms and that grand spiral shape to the galaxy. It does have a companion galaxy nearby as well. This is a physical companion galaxy as well as being nearby in the sky, and that's NGC 5474. This is a really interesting looking galaxy. It's classed as a dwarf spiral, but it has a kind of an off-center nucleus, and it shows up really well in the eyepiece to observe it. Even though it is a small galaxy at only about 2.5 by 1.5 arc minutes. It shines at a magnitude of 10.7, so it's well within the reach of a kind of a mid-size reflector. And in my 12-inch telescope, this one is a really nice galaxy to observe. So next I'm going to move over to the constellation of Draco. It houses some really nice galaxies, so I'm just going to focus on two near Iota Draconis, or the star Edisich, and that's NGC 5906 and NGC 5866. These are two bright galaxies that are close by to each other, just 1.5 degrees apart, and if you go 3 degrees to the west of Iota Draconis, you'll come across NGC 5906. It's also known as NGC 5907, that's because initially it was thought to be two separate objects, but it is an edge-on spiral galaxy, and it's a really nice size. It's about 11 arc minutes across on the length, and its thickness is about maybe 1.5 arc minutes. It's quite a bright object at magnitude 11.88, so you'd pick it up in anything around an 8 or a 10-inch Dobsonian. And it's a bright enough galaxy at 11.88. It's an easy find in my 12-inch Dob, and that's the only one I have observed it in, and it's a really nice looking edge-on galaxy. It did have a supernova in April, but it's really dimmed now, so you'd have to maybe image it to be able to see the detail of that supernova near the core of the galaxy. So if you move a degree and a half then to the south, you'll come across NGC 5866. This is also known as Messier 102, but there has been some doubt cast onto whether this was Messier 102 or if Messier 102 was actually a duplicate observation of Messier 101, but that's a story for a longer video than the one today. This is a bright galaxy. You can see some detail in the core. It's got a 6×3 arc-minute size and it's magnitude 9.88, so it's a bright galaxy to observe, and you should pick it up even easier than seeing the knife edge galaxy. It's also known as the Spindle galaxy. So another class of object that's really nice to observe in the summer skies, and that is double stars, especially if you can get stars that have a lovely color contrast. The most famous of these is probably the beta star of Cygnus, and that is Lyrae, and that has that lovely orange and blue star members separated by only 34 arc seconds, and it shines really bright in your eyepiece. Another close by color contrasting pair is the delta star of Lyrae, but this is two stars, two separate stars. They're not a binary pair, they're just an optical double, but they have a large separation of about 10 arc minutes, and you have that blue and gold pair within it as well. These are two totally different stars, with one star at 1000 light years and the other one at 750 light years. The two of them sit at about 300 light years apart, but just from our line of sight, they sit just that tiny little 10 arc minutes in separation. They are surrounded then by an open cluster of Stephenson 1. It's just about 12 or 14 stars, but it makes for a really nice visual observation, or it makes a really nice image as well. Two other nice color contrasting pairs then that you can hunt down is Razalgeti in Hercules and 95 Hercules. Both of these have that lovely color contrast of blue and orange stars. So I'm going to stay in Hercules now, and we're going to look at the clusters within this constellation. You have that really famous cluster of Messier 13, but I'll begin with Messier 92, which is a slightly smaller and less known cluster, but it's a really nice one in your eyepiece if you can hunt it down. Messier 92 is a bright globular cluster that's just 6 degrees away from Iota Hercules. There's not a huge amount of bright stars right beside it, so you have to use your finder scope to get across, but when you do, it really shows up well in your finder and eyepiece. It's quite bright at magnitude 6.5, and it has a diameter of about 14 arc minutes. It has a 4 on the Shapley-Sawyer concentration chart, with quite a drop off from that bright core, but you can see most of that 14 arc minutes when you're observing it, and it shows up really well in images as well. So the other cluster in Hercules is Messier 13, the Great Hercules cluster. This one is located within that keystone asterism, so it's a little easier to locate. You just need to find Eta and Zeta in the keystone and just move about 2.5 degrees away from Eta, and you'll see that little fuzzy star, and that is the globular cluster. You'll see it in your finder scope, and it looks amazing through your eyepiece as well. This one is a little larger than Messier 92 with a diameter of 20 arc minutes, and it's a little brighter at 5.8 magnitude. This one is about 25,000 light years away, so the two of them are at a similar distance, so you're actually seeing a difference in the diameter of the two globular clusters, with Messier 13 being slightly larger with a diameter of 140 light years. This is one of the nicest objects in the Northern Hemisphere that you can observe, and if you can put a little bit of magnification on it, it shows up really well. My favorite view of this one is just at about 100 power with my 12-inch Dob, and it just really pulls out all those stars and gives it a real 3D effect. Now this leads me into the first one of my deep sky challenges for the month of June, and that is to see if you can spot the little propeller which is within this cluster. This is a faint shape of a Y that sits within the cluster itself, and it's just kind of dark lanes that join together and make that Y shape looking like a propeller. Some people I know have seen it and some haven't. It's kind of like a magic eye trick to observe it, and I had tried this many times to observe, and eventually I was able to spot it with my 12-inch Dob. And once I have spotted it, I can see it every time I go back looking at it, or if I see it in images. I'll show you an image on the shape and where it is located, and then you can see if you can spot this one yourself throughout the month of June. Another little object that's really nice to hunt down in this area is the small galaxy that sits very close to the cluster, and that's NGC 6207. This is a small spiral galaxy just 20 arc minutes away from Messier 13. If you have a wide enough eyepiece, you can pick the two of them up. It's quite bright. Even though it's a magnitude 11.6, you can still pick it up because it only has a size of 1 by 2.5 arc minutes, but you can pick up that oval shape in the eyepiece of this small galaxy. Now the last target for my challenges this month, it's a globular cluster in the constellation of Libra known as NGC 5897, and it's a small loose globular cluster. It has a diameter of about 10 arc minutes and it shines at magnitude 8.5, but it has an 11 on the Shapley-Sawyer concentration class, so it is really loose. It almost looks like an open cluster. And also, if you're in a latitude like mine, it is quite low, so it is a tricky one to pick up, and it's just under halfway moving from Sigma towards Gamma in Libra, and it takes a little bit to find this. You might run into the same mistake I had, and I was actually using Alpha and Beta and trying to find the halfway point there, and I was having no luck obviously, and then I realized that I was looking at the wrong 2 stars in Libra. So pick up the right stars, and you just want to go under halfway towards it, and you will see the small globular cluster there. But it is quite loose, and you can see those individual stars. It looks really like an open cluster, but this is a globular cluster, and it sits at about 40,000 light years from us with a diameter of 170 light years. So this is larger than Messier 13, but it's just that distance away, and that looseness gives it this different look. I hope all these objects are of interest to you this month, and I hope you get some clear nights, even though they're going to be short, and you might get a chance to observe some of these targets. If you do observe them or image them, do let me know in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing from you all. And thanks so much for watching. Until next time, clear skies.